everybody. My name is Keely Spring. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. And today I am talking with Patty, and I will turn it over to Patty in a quick second. I usually share how we know each other, and actually, I'm just getting to know Patty. We just were introduced recently, so really excited to kind of learn more and to kind of get to know her with the rest of you. So, with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. So, Patty, could you just share with anybody listening or watching what populations, niches you work with, those kinds of where you're located, that kind of stuff?
Sure, sure. Well, first, thanks for being here. It is sort of nice to get to know you and do this.
Yeah.
My name is Patty. I'm an LMFT licensed in both Colorado and California. I work with mostly couples and adults, uh, couples around relationship stuff. I kind of like affair repair and individuals, kind of complex trauma, relationship issues, identity formation, life transitions. Those are some of my subsets. And as of late, I've started to get more into climate anxiety for the unfortunate, obvious reasons. But that's generally what I like to work with.
Okay. And do you practice mostly virtually or is it a hybrid or model?
It's more hybrid. So I actually reside in Denver, and I have an office that I go to once a week. And then I go back to San Francisco periodically, at which point I invite my Bay Area clients to come in, and I rent an office from a colleague in Hayes Valley, and gets to be kind of like fun and novel. And it always just feels like an extra treat to see people back and in person. And it's then more sustainable for them because they're then not commuting every week, but maybe once a quarter.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I love that. And you had shared with me briefly, Patty, you were in the Bay Area previously, so you were very familiar with kind of Bay Area and this
Yes.
kind of space here.
Right. Yeah. So I went to grad school at California Institute of Integral Studies, graduated from the somatics program, did all my hours there, got licensed, and then moved in the pandemic. So I was in the Bay for about 7, 8 years.
Which kind of leads me to my next question. How did you come to be a therapist? What was your journey to get here? What did that kind of look like? I mean, I know the obvious, had to get your hours, go to school, all those things, but for
Sure.
you personally, what was the journey like?
Uh, Kind of simple. Um, so I majored in psychology in undergrad, and by junior year, I was like, oh, what does one do with a bachelor's degree in psychology? Like,
Fair.
no. And so I think I was in some like global studies class, and a woman came in that proposed a an internship. And it was internship to go to China and do like minority preservation work, which was super cool. I was in like very rural villages in China, which didn't have much to do with psychology, but she was a therapist. And so she kind of became my mentor. And I think I just kind of fell into it. So applied for various programs, but had community in San Francisco. And so I flew out for an info session at CIS and was like, I don't know much about this. I don't even know what somatics is. I graduated from the somatics program, and it just felt so intuitive and felt right. And so I moved to San Francisco for therapy grad school at 23, 24, and became kind of my first career job. And I've loved it ever since.
This is history, so to speak.
Yeah.
Uh, so because people, I love somatic work as well and practice somatically, but maybe people viewing might not know what that means. Could you just kind of explain what the somatic work looks like in terms of, the expertise that you have, kind of how you're.
Sure. So somatics is known as just sort of like body based, sort of like a bottom up versus a top down approach. Top down approach is going to be like, yeah, more cognitive, more thinking. And the somatic idea is that it's so much more implicit. Like in trauma work, we think about like, your nervous system is communicating something implicitly. It's not necessarily related to your thoughts. And so it gets to be just more of that like change happens from a different place of consciousness that isn't just intellectualizing. Like both are needed because you have to integrate like mind and body. But I find that by being able to integrate both top down and bottom up is like where meaningful change can really happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with it. It's kind of like where we store that stuff in our body. It's still stored, so we got to find ways to get it out.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that leads me to my next question. What do you like about being a therapist?
Oh, many things. I do feel really lucky that I like my job. Um, and I think what I like most about it, well, a few things is one, I'm never bored.
Sure.
Like just every person that shows up, because humans are inherently different, they're bringing in something different. And so I really like that I get to be very dynamic in this job. Like always kind of being challenged to think and feel and use tons of different skill sets. So I like that I'm never bored. And I love people. I've always loved people. So it has an extra satisfaction of I get to connect with people every day in a way that most of the time feels really meaningful.
Yeah, I can resonate with all that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this stuff is definitely not boring and it's keeps you on your toes, but in the most magical, wonderful way.
Totally. Yeah. It does often feel like magic.
Okay, so to that end, we talked a little bit about somatics, but could you talk a little bit about the modalities that you use? You were mentioning the head and the heart or the head and the body and kind of that blend. Um, could you explain a little bit kind of the modalities of ways that you kind of access those different
Mhm.
points?
Yeah. So I guess this is more of like my theoretical orientation, which is like, I was trained psychodynamically and somatically. So, like, relationally is the psychodynamic. Like, we are two people in the room together and we are going to learn about who you are based on how you are in relationship to me. And then somatic, I kind of touched on, but then specific modalities. I will say, yeah, I started kind of advancing my somatic practice. So I did sensory motor level one, and then was like I think they call it alumni learner, but basically was like a trainer to then help the other learners in the process.
Nice.
And so that became a big part of my work. Um, I've also now started to do IFS, which is internal family systems. People hear that as like parts work.
Mhm.
Like a part of you feels blank, but another part of you feels blank, and we're going to give attention to like each part.
Mhm.
Um, and then for my couples work, kind of started in EFT, strong kind of attachment theory background, done Gottman level one, but then Ellen Bader's developmental model, like totally transformed couples work for me. Like I drink that Kool-Aid and I think it's delicious and I think it's nutrient rich.
Uh,
And
yeah.
it was so intuitive for me that kind of once I got it, I just started to use it and like saw it really change how I was working with couples and how well it worked with couples.
Mhm.
So I think that one's my favorite at the moment.
Okay. Could you explain a little bit for those who might not know what that I mean, she's kind of a uh therapist that most people who are in the field know because she has such a very established career of working with couples and developing. But could you share what that kind of looks like, what that means in terms of couples work?
Yeah, hers is a strong emphasis on differentiation. So she kind of tracks it from like human development, like, and the different stages of development. And the first stage is the symbiotic stage, and like uh primary caregiver, mother, and baby are just like one, and how naturally baby starts to change and grow and challenge. And that's kind of the same of couples, right? That honeymoon phase is like, oh, we like all the same things. I'm so smitten. There's no conflict. And then naturally, differences start to occur. But there's a lot of tension around difference because it's conflict, and most of us aren't taught how to manage conflict. And so she sort of says, like, that's where couples get stuck. And so it's really teaching couples about what she calls the gift of differentiation. I am myself, you are yourself. How do we understand that and not necessarily have to agree, but kind of deepen understanding about one's differences and tolerate the anxiety in that to then actually grow closer.
Yeah, I heard her speak a couple years ago, and she's very, very powerful, and these concepts are very well developed and really well thought through. And yeah, I see that even in the couples work I do, right?
Totally. And like relatable and
yeah,
just like really, really humble. And I really like that about her approach.
for sure, for sure. Okay, so to that end, the next question would be, what does a session look like? Are you very structured in your kind of work, or is it more organic feeling? Can you kind of walk us through what that might look like?
Both.
Fair.
Classic therapist answer is like it depends.
Yep.
And it's because it depends. Like each client kind of has different needs. But the structure is generally like 50 minutes, sometimes with a couple 75 minutes. And I'll usually try and thread, meaning like, last time we talked about this. Have you had any other experiences around that? Like, can we touch on that today? And other times it's like, yeah, I know we're supposed to be talking about my mom, but like I really want to be talking about my boss today. And so I kind of, I meet clients where they're at while holding the backdrop of what our themes, what our goals.
Yeah, it's the dance, the kind of push and pull of therapy of
Right.
trying to follow where the client needs to go versus where we, in our mind might be like, okay, we gotta
Right.
work on these things, right? But you gotta
Yeah.
kind of have that balance,
Yeah.
that dance. Okay, so this comes up for me every once in a while. I'm surprised by somebody brings something in, or there's some sort of theme that's going on. One of the classic things that comes up for me is I'll have themes in my day. Like all of a sudden people come in and they, you mentioned infidelity earlier. It's like somebody will come in and that's the theme. And then like the next person comes in and they want to talk about it. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Like this day is this focus, right? So there's things like that that surprise me. Are there things that surprise you as well about therapy?
That surprised me. Um, yeah, I think sometimes I'm surprised by even as much of as I've done this and things that I know and like anticipate, there's sometimes that someone will come in and not even just like with whatever they're coming in with, but almost then the result, or like we will just stumble upon something and it's like, how did we get here? I don't even know, but kind of the magic of like, oh, we just stumbled upon something that feels super spontaneous and yet feels so important for here and now.
Mhm,
And so just kind of the magic of like
mhm,
the spontaneity of healing.
mhm.
Like
Yeah,
it's not always linear. In fact,
yeah,
most of the time it's not. But like when it really feels out of left field, I just like sort of surrender into the awe of those moments.
for sure, for sure. That resonates. I think too in today's day and age, everybody thinks there should be a linear process, and rarely do I see. I mean, occasionally it goes linear, but you know, that's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah,
It's more like you said, I
absolutely.
love the kind of magic of stumbling upon those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, is there anything that you wish people knew or understood about therapy that kind of comes up either personally or professionally that you wish was kind of more well known about the therapy or the therapy process?
I mean, I wish people kind of knew that it wasn't always linear.
Fair. Fair.
Yeah, it's like it takes its turns and it's, both uh abstract and not, that it is sort of like paradoxical and contradictory all in the same breath, but still kind of results in something. And so again, holding the both of like, we kind of need that structure and having to kind of move in and out of it is going to be part of the process.
I wish people knew that as well. Um, okay, so final question kind of in this area of kind of clinical work. Is there a tool or some sort of, insight that you like to share with people that you kind of, I know it depends on the client and who's kind of in the room with us, but we all kind of have our favorite go-to tools occasionally. So are there any that kind of resonate for you or that you kind of share with people?
It kind of changes. Like if I read a recent book, I'm gonna like have that top of mind and throw that tidbit out. I think I think this week a client was like, but wait, can we actually just take 3 breaths and not just talk about it? And I'm just like, brilliant. Yes, let's actually just do that.
Fair.
So, sometimes I'll bring that in just to be like, well, we know this is helpful, but like, can you and I actually just do it in this moment?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
And then another just kind of more fun one that I've started to give people is try and make small talk with strangers. Like,
Oh.
I think I got that from like Happiness Lab, or I think it
Mm.
was on like my friend's 2025 bingo card. But just like the little bit of joy that can happen from making small talk with a stranger just like gives a little bit more bounce and reminding all of us that like we are social beings and it can feel good to have those little moments of connection.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. Um I sometimes struggle with that with people who that's exactly what they need, but they're unwilling to
Right.
explore that because it's scary and it can be overwhelming. So
Right.
sometimes I will like moderate the like just make eye contact. Just look at
Right.
somebody, right? Like just that human connection to your point is so powerful and whatever level you can kind of access it,
Yep. And it doesn't have to be, how was your day? It's like, oh, I like your jacket.
right? Yeah.
And then see what evolves from that.
Mhm.
People are usually surprised by what actually can be generated.
Yeah. Yeah, I always think people are actually driven by connection, and we don't realize that because we get very siloed in our space, but we're all looking for connection on some level of,
Yep.
so I love that. I love that as a strategy. Nicole. Okay, so as I think you're aware, because we chatted briefly about this, is those are kind of the clinical questions. I'm going to dive into a little bit more kind of get to know you overview. Are you ready? Are you willing?
I'm ready. I'm willing.
All right.
Able.
Awesome. Okay, so first question. What is making you happy right now?
What is making me happy right now? I mean, in this exact moment, like connecting. But as of late, it's a good question. I think I've been more intentional about, yeah, like socializing. So every Thursdays, I now have like craft night with friends. And I can't say I'm very crafty or artistic. And that's not even the point.
Yeah.
It's just been like kind of something to look forward to. And I always walk away Thursday nights from this group of friends just feeling alive.
Mhm.
Happy, yes, but it sort of has that more of just like, oh, I just feel like I'm alive.
Uh-huh.
And that's been really satisfactory as of late.
I love that. Do you each person in the group pick a different kind of craft to do, or do you kind of come up with crafts collectively that you're going to do, or does each person bring their own craft? How does that? I'm just curious. It sounds like a great
It's,
idea.
yeah, it's a collective. Like, did January bingo cards, like, what's your bingo card for 2025? And that was fun because it also had to be sort of introspective and like, what do you want for the year? And then, yeah, February was making Valentine's.
Nice. All right.
And I don't think we've settled on a March.
Okay. All right. So it's kind of themed around whatever that month is in terms of uh,
Yeah, which hasn't been intentional, but that's just sort of been like how it's happened.
sure. I love it. I love this idea. I might steal that idea because I like it. Okay. What's your favorite app?
Favorite app? Like mental health app or just any app?
Any app. Doesn't have to be mental health.
Wow, I have no idea. Um, I I think this is silly. I do really like the New York Times games.
You're not the first person to say that. I think it's a winner.
I do like Instagram, of course, but as we're all learning, like digital detox is necessary. Um, but there's something about, yeah, the New York Times games that gets to be pretty brief. And it feels like just the right amount of time to be like, oh, yeah, that scratched that itch of like being on my phone, but not falling into the endless scrolling where I don't even know what I just looked at.
Yeah, love it. Do you have a favorite game? Are you more like crossword puzzles or I don't know what type of
I used to like spelling bee over Wordle, but spelling bee takes too long. So now I've gone back to being a Wordle person.
Okay. All right. Nice. Okay, this one's easy. Beach or mountains?
Oh, is that easy?
You could say both. Some people say both.
Both. It's this is nuanced, but mountains, mountains most of the time, but ocean if the water is like a bathtub.
Ah, okay. So not the cold Bay Area ocean.
I have swam many of times in the bay and have plunged in Ocean Beach. And I was recently ish in the Caribbean and I was like, oh, I like my water to be this temperature.
That is
Yeah. But I also grew up at high altitude. Like I love the alpine, like anything in the backcountry, like really feels grounding.
yeah, Colorado has so many great trails and parks and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Endless.
It's great. Uh, okay, what is one thing that movies never get right?
Oh.
Could be anything again.
Um, I mean, this is hard because I can't imagine how difficult it is to like capture like nuance in 90-ish minutes,
Sure.
but that I think films kind of miss the yeah, the contradictions of what it means to be human, that it doesn't usually follow a very linear story, which makes true, right? You're born, you live, and then you die. Like that is fairly linear, but like there's just so much more complexities that I'd like to see more of like what is not a linear ending or just, yeah, more of that.
Mhm. Yeah, love that answer. Very true. Okay, maybe this is an easy one. Best way to relax.
Best way to relax. Probably two-part. One is like quality social engagement. That's probably be my favorite. But my go-to is exercise. Like I just always feel better after I've like moved my body. And so while it's not maybe relaxing in the moment, like kind of the after effect is like, oh, my body feels again alive, but alive in like a taking care of, comforting way.
Are there certain exercises, like are you a runner or a hiker or a gym person? Are there certain ones you gravitate towards?
Historically a runner, that's probably been my like biggest love. And as I age, my hips disagree.
Fair.
So also a big fan of swimming and yoga and strength training has been my modality of choice as of late.
Mhm.
Feeling strong is like a really satisfying feeling.
Mhm. Yeah, fair. Okay, dream trip location. Where would you like to go?
Um, I mean, I feel pretty lucky that I've been to a fair amount of places, but because it's winter and I don't fare very well in winter, I would love to go anywhere right now that is warm and sunny. Like
Maybe.
take me back to the bathtub water, like wherever that may be, just somewhere really warm and where I'm getting a lot of sunshine. Sounds utterly delightful.
Fair enough. Okay, what advice would you give your younger self if you could go back and talk to a younger version of yourself? What advice would you give it?
And this one feels cliche, but to really just be kind, like to be kind to, oneself, others, of course, but I think, young me and young a lot of people just have a lot of those like preoccupations with peer and insecurities. And, that starts the track of negative self talk. And I just really believe in kindness.
Love it. Okay, four seasons. Which is your favorite?
Summer,
Summer.
summer. Give
That
me
warm.
the heat, give me the sunshine, give me the long days.
Yeah.
Fall is nice. Fall has like nostalgia to it,
Mhm.
but summer through and through.
Mhm. Fair. Okay. What would be the worst superhero power to have?
I I don't want to read people's minds, which maybe sounds silly kind of in this field because
Yep.
I'm know people's minds.
It is actually the number one answer from all therapists so far. It's not, I did not expect that to be like a theme, but it's been interesting. Yeah.
I'm just like, turn it off. I recently listened to a podcast series called The Telepathy Tapes.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
highly recommend, very entertaining. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to be telepathic. Like, I part of it sounds really cool and like truly like a gift.
Sure.
And I don't want that superpower.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Most therapists I've talked to so far have said the same. So you're in good company, I think. And full disclosure, it would be my answer as well. So like, get it, totally get it. Okay, what's an animal that you feel like connected to on a deeper level?
Oh, I love whales.
Oh, I love it.
I
Sounds
love whales. Actually, yeah, I have like a whale tattoo
oh,
here.
nice.
Um, and I've just always felt super connected to them.
Hmm.
Like they're smart, they're magical, they're beautiful, they're communicators. Like
Yes, yeah. There's this whole rich, diverse ecosystem in which they live that we only know like little bits about.
right, right.
Yeah, they're pretty fascinating. Okay, so final question. When you look back at your life, what do you hope that you're able to say?
I hope that I'm able to say that I lived it, right? Not just like existed, but like really felt connected or engaged to people that I love, places that I like, like, yeah, sort of broad, but I really just feel like I can say, you know what? I lived that life and I lived it fully.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you, Patty. You are now seen. Appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today and share your, experience and a little bit more about yourself. And for anybody watching, I'll put Patty's information in the notes of this so you can find her. Is there anything else you want to add, Patty, before we hop off here?
No, I mean, thank you so much. Like, this was a lot of fun.
My pleasure. Thank you again.